Awesome. So, guys, welcome to the character creation workshop. And if you're joining us on YouTube, welcome as well. Hi, I hope this has a lot of information for you guys and help you guys really make your own character. So yeah, welcome. Any links or any other information will be down in the description if you need anything, you know, all of that yibba yabba when it does go up on YouTube. But other than that, we're going to get straight into character creation. So when you come to this page, can everybody see that? I think so. Yeah, perfect. So when you come to this page, you're just going to want to go up into your collections, and then it's just my characters. So once you press that, it will take you to this screen where if you have no characters, obviously you won't see any, but you're going to want to go up into the top right hand corner where it says create a character, and then you're going to have three different options. You're going to have randomize, which is if you don't really know what you want to do, just give you a random character, random race, random class, everything like that. So just randomize character. Quick build is also a fairly easy one if you know the race and class you want, but you can't be bothered to sit there doing all of the stats and all of the HP and everything. Just quick build a character and it'll do everything for you. But to properly learn how to make characters and to know the features and stuff you have part of your class, we're going to use the standard. So just going to click standard and it's going to bring you to this screen. So today, just as a like a prep character, we'll call it, I'm going to be making a human wizard. So I'm just going to change the name to Sebastian. Obviously you can name whatever you want. You can also come back and change this later if you do not have a name for them yet, so don't worry too much about the name at this point. So everything from here on forwards, this may be different depending your DM. So please keep in mind that other DMs may be different with this, but I'm going to speak in terms of me as a DM and how I'd want you guys to make your characters for the one-shots. So in terms of the sources, other than the ones that are already on there, the extra sources that I want you to pick, so you can either choose Critical Role content, that's completely fine, you can have that. Homebrew and playtest, I don't tend to allow. Magic the Gathering, I again have no idea, so not that, but Eberron is completely fine as well. Dice rolling, you can enable this just allows you to roll dice on the D&D Beyond page or app, so if you don't have any dice, this is really good for a first, for a starter. Optional features, you can turn those off. In terms of advancement type, usually myself included, people will ask for milestone, but because of the way that the one-shots are being organised and how this sort of guild is being put together, we're going to go ahead and use XP. So every time you do adventure, you'll get a certain amount of XP, which will allow you to level up at certain amounts, which I will let you guys know in the Discord at what XP you get to level up. So if you made a character, you may want to go back and change some of these things. But yeah, so XP for the advancement type. Hit point type. Completely up to you. Fix just means that you will take the average of your hit dice, which I'll come back to in a little bit, but you will have a fixed number that you go up by each time, plus your Constitution modifier. You can also go to manual if you want to roll for your hit die. If you could possibly end up getting a lot higher than the average. You could also end up getting a hell of a lot lower than the average. So whether you want to risk it for a biscuit or not, it's completely up to you. So for now, I'm just going to go with fixed, just for the ease of it. Prerequisites. I do ask for prereqs for feats and multi-class requirements. Example, if you are a rogue and you want to multi-class into a wizard, you will need to ensure that you have a base stat of 13 for an intelligence to be able to multi-class into a wizard. I do require prereqs for the feats and the multi-class requirements, so if you ensure you have those on, and if you want to multi-class, to make sure that you put the stats in a little bit in a way that allows you to multi-class later on down the road. Level skill spells, that's completely up to you. Personally, I would say to turn those off as a beginner, because it can get a bit confusing, but basically it just means that if you can cast a level 1 spell with a level 3 spell slot, then the level 1 spell will be showed at level 1, level 2 and level 3. That's all it means. It's just whether you want to see all of the spells available or not, so it's up to you. Encumbrance, turn that off. That sucks. Nobody likes encumbrance. It drags down the game and the player, so I don't worry about it. The same for ignore coin weight. We ignore that. We don't worry about the weight of the coins. And then the ability score or the modifier on top, again, that's up to you. So the modifiers is the +1s or the +2s that you would add to your dice rolls. So if you make an intelligence check, you would roll a d20 and you would add your intelligence modifier. Or you can have the base scores on top. So you would, so that's like the 12s and 13s that gives you your modifier, but consequently does not get added to the dice roll or anything. So again, for ease, I'm just going to keep modifiers on top. So once you've sorted out all of the basic information with that, it's time to choose a race. Now, usually people would have sort of a race or a class in mind, and they would choose the race or class depending on the sort of character they want to go. So as you go through, you can see these are all of the ones that you can pick, and as a rule, any of them that are on here already are part of all sources you can use. The only one I'm a bit hesitant about using is the variant human. I don't tend to allow that just because it confuses me and it's a bit meh. But other than that, everything else on this page you can choose. So as I said, we're going for human, and when you click human, they give you the basic rundown of the abilities humans get, or whatever race you choose. So +1 ability scores. That's what you look for if you're trying to coordinate your race and your class together. So if you want to go for a warlock, you'll probably go with a race that has a +1 or a +2 to charisma. If you're going for cleric, you're probably going to want to go for a race that's got a +1 or a +2 to wisdom. The one good thing about half elves and the one good thing about humans is that you either get a +1 to all, or in the case of the half elf, you get a +1 to any stat that you wish. So these two races are very, very versatile for that reason. And then you've got the extra things down here that you can have a quick look at. So once you've chosen your race, that's when we're going to take a look at what class. Oh, yeah, so you may get to choose a language and stuff with your race as well. So we'll just go Abyssal because first one. So yeah, once you've chosen your race, you have to choose your class. So before we move on, is everybody all right with everything I've said so far? Are there any questions about choosing your race? Ooh, I have a question. Okay, I'm just going to wait a second. Okay, yeah, so awesome. So somebody just said that Drow is in the elf subclasses. It's not that I don't allow Drow. You guys are more than welcome to play Drow. I just highly suggest that you don't take it, only because there are disadvantage in sunlight. And some other things that could prove rather difficult while playing, especially in a one-shot where I can probably say a lot of it is going to be outside, and I don't want to disadvantage you guys to such a great extent where you have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. So, you know, it's not that you can't play a drow, it's that I don't recommend it because of the disadvantage that you get with the rolls if you're in sunlight. Okay, there's no other questions or points of note. I think we can get on with choosing a class. So, this is where things get interesting. Think of a class as a job. What job would your character have? What profession are they pursuing? What have they got an interest in? What do you have an interest in playing? The way I sort of look at class is you've got I usually split them up into a couple of categories. So you have the spellcasters, sort of the sorcerer, warlock, wizards. You've got sort of the sneaky people, so rogue, and I suppose monks can also be put into those as well. You've got the damage dealers, monk being one of those, rogue being one of those, and fighter. Then you've got sort of the meat shields, who sort of go to the front and make sure the hits aren't being put on other people but are on themselves, either because of high AC or high HP. They tend to be barbarian or or paladins. So sort of have a think about what sort of class you want to play. Do you want to be a healer? If you do, that would be the cleric. Do you want to be a powerful sorcerer? In which case you'd be a sorcerer. Do you want to be somebody who can go in, sneak, get things done without being noticed and without fighting? If so, you probably want to go for the rogue. And if you want to be, I don't know, like a certain sort of, you know, being able to track things and good with bows and arrows and good for hunting, then you're probably going to want to go for a ranger. So sort of have a think about what skills that you want to bring to the table. And when you've compiled sort of a list of things that you want, you'll usually be left with one or two clear classes that you can pick. Again, for just for ease, I am going to go for a wizard. Again, just as a character, just to show you guys how to build. So if you're playing with me in the one shot, you are going to want to make sure that this level says 1. If you click down, you've got all up to level 20, but for the one shot, we are going with level 1. But again, just to show you, I will click on level 20 so I can show you some of the other things for when you level up, so you know how to do them. So your hit points are automatically calculated to start with, so you don't need to worry about those. Proficiencies. So you become proficient in skills. Those are the things that as you proceed through your class, that you have certain, like a set of skills that you have become proficient in. So they will give you extra bonuses when you're making checks of those skills. For my wizards, I'm going to go Arcana, or we'll go History, sorry, because Arcana's coming later. We'll go History and Investigation. Both of those rely on in Intelligence, which will be my wizard's main stat. So I really am building this character to do a specific type of job in this game. You can either do that, or you can just have fun and see what takes your fancy the most. Another thing that we should look at is the Arcane Tradition. The Arcane Tradition is a kind of like a subclass. Now, some classes, such as clerics, will get this subclass at level 1. That's where they choose their domain. Others, such as the wizard, will get it at 2nd level, where they choose their Arcane Tradition. Again, because of having to buy the books and stuff on here, I've only got School of Evocation. So I'm just going to choose that. The majority of classes, however, do get their subclass at level 3, such as rogues. A level 3 seems to be quite a big level because a lot of features or subclasses are then brought into the game. At subsequent levels, you do get subclass features in which you get extra things from your subclass, which is why it's always important to think what sort of subclass you want to go into. If it makes it a little bit easier, think of as your class starting at A level, or sort of like a specialized college. And then when you choose your subclass, you go into university, for example, where you specialize your efforts into a singular subject. So this is kind of what you're doing. You're looking at all of the subclasses that your character could have, and you're focusing in on a singular type of subclass, and that subclass tends to have very sort of honed in skills. But again, I'm going to have to do evocation on this one because of my restrictions on the website. Cool. At higher levels, you will also get something called an ASI, or an ability score improvement. That's where you can add scores to your base score. So this wouldn't be your bonus. You wouldn't have a +1 and go to a +2. You would have a 12 and go to a 13. So you can either increase one ability score by 1, or sorry, 2 ability scores by 1, so charisma and constitution, for example, or you can increase one ability score by 2, so constitution and constitution. Another thing that's also open to you, which I'm more than happy for you to use, is the feats. Now, I don't have many options on this, unfortunately. I don't know whether that's just because of the character I'm creating, or whether because of the restrictions on the website. However, feats do give you sort of extra abilities. You do, however, forfeit the ASI, but you do get other feats. Now, I will say the only feat that I do not allow, and I know a lot of DMs also do not allow it, is the lucky feat. I'm not going to go into all of the feats. You are more than welcome to Google them and have a look to see what they're all about. But if you want to look at the lucky feat, again, you're welcome to, and I think you'll understand why a lot of DMs do not allow it. It can be very game breaking. But just to show you as an example, if we choose the firearm specialist, again, this is not going to work for my wizard, so I'm not going to choose this, but as an example, if you choose this with one of your other characters, you gain proficiency with firearms, so guns and as such. If you roll a misfire on an attack with a firearm, you can use your reaction to roll a d20, and it tells you what happens. And when you use the attack action and attack with one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a loaded firearm. So you can see that these feats give you extra things that can, again, hone in on more skills that you want your character to have, special abilities. There's one called Keen Mind that allows you to have a lot of information in your brain at one go, and you can remember a lot of information as well. But again, I'm going to go back, and for my wizard, I'm going to increase his intelligence and his constitution score. So as you can see as we go through, you get more ASIs, where you can either choose feats or increase your stats. You get more stuff to do with your subclass, and you get some really, really cool stuff past 16th level. But again, we will be starting at first level, so I'm going to bring my wizard back down to level 1. Spells. Some of you won't need to worry about this if you are playing a non-spellcaster. However, spells can get very, very difficult. So I'm going to try and explain it in a way that is easy to understand. So please message me or tell me if I'm not making sense, and I can try and rephrase it. Before we do that, any questions about anything I've just said about picking your class, subclass, anything like that? Say that again, sorry.
What was the role of the Druid?
So the Druid is a fairly, personally, I would say a tricky class to play. They don't tend to have a specific role within a party, at least from very early on. They can do a little bit of healy stuff, they can do a little bit of damage stuff. and again, this is all my personal opinion, but I think druids are great for just sort of roleplay purposes. And I'm not saying druids are bad to play. I've played a few druids and they are amazing characters. They can be very, very powerful characters as well. But in terms of a category to put them in, it's very, very hard to find a defined category to put druids in, because they don't really have a defined role within parties. They can kind of do a little bit of everything. You know, they can deal damage, they can do a bit of healing, and at certain levels they can also morph themselves into animals and give themselves crazy HP bonuses to be sort of meat shields. So yeah, I don't think I would be able to effectively put druids into a class, into a group. But yeah, they are awesome classes to play as well. Okay, so before we do spells, I'm going to go on to abilities quickly, just because your spells and the number of spells that you can get does depend on your ability modifiers and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to quickly move on. I'm going to come back to spells in a little bit. So, with ability scores, there are numerous ways in which you can get your ability scores. However, there are three main ways. So, standard array, rolled, and points by. I'm going to quickly go through rolled, as I don't tend to allow that one, just because I want to make sure that everybody is on sort of the same level. And if we have somebody who has like a 6, 6, 8, 10, 13 and a 12, and then you have somebody with great stats like a 14, 14, 13, 15, 12 and 16, it does seem very unfair. So it makes it a lot easier to get your stats if we don't use that. But usually when you roll, you would roll 4d6 and then take the 3 highest and add them together. Hence why you can get such disparities between the lower stats that you have and the highest stats of somebody else. And another reason why I don't like using rolled, because you could very easily get really, really bad stats. Usually I'd say take standard array, especially if you are a new player. This is because it's the easiest one to go with. There's not really much thinking. You just take the highest number that you have and put it in the stat that works best with your character. So you are given a set of numbers: 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 and 15. These currently are not with any bonuses that you have acquired through your race or your class. They will come in a second. Each class tends to have one stat that is associated with it. For example, a wizard stat would be intelligence. That's because they use intelligence modifier for their spells, their spell save DC, and other things related to their spell work. However, you have stuff like clerics, where they have wisdom as their spell save DC and spell attack modifier. However, even non-magic characters also have a stat usually based with them. For example, rogues tend to have dexterity. That's so that they can do sleight of hand and stealth. Whereas you have monks who can use strength or dex. Usually it's up to them. And I'm pretty sure, remember correctly, sort of barbarians and fighters, their stat is strength. So depending what class you go for will depend what order you put your numbers in for your stats. So I'm going to put in 15 for my wizard, being the spell casting modifier and stuff. That's the one I think that he should try and focus his energy on. If you go down, you can see that even though I put 15 in, my base score is actually 16, and the modifier is a +3. That's because I chose the human race, which means I get a +1 to all of my base stats. So that goes from a 15 to a 16. As it's gone up to a 16, my modifier has also gone up from a 2 to a 3. I will do modifiers at the end, and just sort of a quick cascade system of what base score gives you what modifier. It's fairly simple, but very quick, so I'll do that at the end of this. The next two I would highly suggest putting your stats in is Dexterity and Constitution. Constitution is used to see the number of HP you get. So you would add your dice roll or your average, and to that you would add your Constitution modifier for your HP. So if you have a minus in your Constitution, then you're going to be taking away 1 to every HP level up. So I highly suggest you put in either a 14 or a 13 in Constitution. So I'm just going to put my 14 in Constitution to try and get as many HP as I can, and Dexterity I'm going to give a 13. Dexterity is important because Dexterity is added to your armor class. If you have heavy armor, you don't add anything to it, but by that point you don't really need to add anything. Heavy armor gives you enough of a buff on its own. However, medium armor will allow you to have up to a +2 bonus from your Dexterity, and light armor allows you to just add your Dexterity. So if you have a +3 to Dex, then you have a +3 to your AC. Your armor class is what monsters have to roll to match or higher to be able to hit you. The higher AC that you have, the least likely or less likely that a monster is able to hit you. Whereas HP is how many times they're able to hit you before you go down. I would next suggest putting your next highest in Wisdom. The reason for this is that there seems to be a lot of Wisdom and Dexterity saving throws. Those are the most commonly used. So the higher Wisdom you have, the less likely you are to take a lot of damage on a Wisdom saving throw. Next, I would probably put Charisma, because again, if you want to try and persuade someone and it's good for roleplay, then you're probably going to have to roll a Charisma check. And Strength as the lowest. The reason I'm putting Strength as the lowest for my wizard is because they're not really melee fighters, they are spellcasters. They are not going to be in the heat of it, and so Strength isn't going to be a big concern for them. However, if you are playing a class such as a fighter who is a melee attacker, then you're definitely going to want to put your 15 in Strength. So I would use your highest to put into the stat that is related to your class, and the next two highest in your Dex or your Con, just to give you the buff that you need. So just as a quick call out to point buy, because I know some people do use point buy, you start with 8 on all of your stats. You then have 27 points to do in which you would be able to allocate them to whichever stat you want. This allows you to really hone in on the character you want to make it more personal. So as you can see, if I want a 15 in intelligence, that's 9 points. So of course I want 15, but I also want a high Dex and a high Con, and the standard array just won't give me what I want. So I'm going to put a 15 in Dex and a 15 in Con. That gives me a +3 to Dex, a +3 to Con, and a +3 to Intelligence. That seems like a very great way to start if you want to be a wizard. However, you can see I've got 0 points remaining, so my Strength, Wisdom and Charisma are all going to fail, or they're going to fall below the average of 10. So you are going to have an 8, or because I'm a human, a 9, and a -1 to each of those. Okay, so what if I don't like that? What if I maybe want to reduce my Con to a 14? Or my Dex to a 14? I can now add 12 to my Wisdom. So I still have 14, 14, 15 and a 12. But I've now got 0 points remaining and an 8 in Strength and an 8 in Charisma. You can get the standard array numbers in point buy if you wish. But if you do that, you might as well just take standard array. So these are both fairly equal because you can get really high in more than one stat, but you are going to be sacrificing some of your other stats. As such, I'm just going to stick with standard array. So put these back in quickly. Perfect. So once you've done that, I'm going to quickly jump back to class and do my spells. If you don't have spells, you can just go straight onto your description and equipment and stuff, which we'll come to in a second. However, if we look back at add spells, I've now got 4 spells rather than 1. Depending what spellcaster you've decided. Actually, we're going to take a quick thing there. Before we go into spells, does anybody have any questions about stats before we move on?
Might I say for the new players that Constitution is also used to maintain, if you're a spellcaster, concentration on your spells when getting hit.
Yes, thank you. I did forget about that actually. Yeah, so if you have a concentration spell up, which again we'll come to in a second with the spells, if you get hit, you will have to make a concentration check, which is a constitution check. So if you are a spellcaster, constitution is definitely a good one to have a fairly high constitution in. Thank you. Yeah, I completely forgot about that then.
It's all good, you can't remember everything.
Okay, I think there's no other questions, so we'll move on to spells. So spells are a fairly weird thing, I would personally say, in D&D, because I don't think any spellcaster actually has the same type of rules for spells. For example, clerics, when you level up, you get access to all of your spells. So if you have level 1 spell slots, you have access to every single one of your level 1 spells. The only difference is you have to prepare certain spells, and the number that you can prepare per day is dependent on your stats and your proficiency bonus. I think it's your proficiency bonus plus your wisdom modifier plus just your casting level, actually. Yeah. And it's only the ones that you've prepared that you can cast that day, but you can change out the spells that you have prepared after every long rest. Whereas wizards, you have access to a few number of spells. You obviously get some more as you level up. However, wizards have a spell book. You are able to find or buy spell scrolls and take some time and spend a little bit of coin to transfer these spells into your spell book. Again, you do have to prepare these spells each day. You do have a certain number of spells that you can prepare each day. However, you don't have access to all of them at all times. The ones that you choose are the ones that are locked in, and if you want any more, then you have to go and buy spell scrolls. Sorcerers are, again, a little bit different. You don't have prepared spells, but you have a list of sorcerer spells that you just choose some from every time you level up. You cannot change these out. These are permanent spells. You don't get a list that you can choose from each morning. What you choose at your level up is what you're stuck with. So you'll need to double check on your class of how that works. But obviously for wizard is what I'm making today. I'm just going to choose some of the wizard spells. Also, each class has a different spell list. So what you see here for my wizard doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get those for your class. If they're not in your class list, unfortunately, you are not going to be able to cast them. But let's go on to choosing our spells. So as you can see here, these are cantrips. Cantrips are level 0 spells. This means that you do not need to use spell slots. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are spell slots? What does that mean? Spell slots it's like how much energy you have to cast these spells. They're very difficult to try and explain, but if you've played video games, maybe you're more aware of like mana. You have a certain amount of mana that you have, that once you've used all the mana up, you can no longer cast spells. That's a little bit what spell slots are like. You have a certain number of slots per level, and lower level you only have first level spell slots, but as you grow in power you have more powerful spell slots, going all the way up to 9th level spell slots. To start with, I'm pretty sure my wizard is only going to have 2 level 1 spell slots, which means I can cast 2 level 1 spells per long rest, before I am too tired to be able to cast any more spells. Cantrips, however, if you think of them as they're just so integrated into your person, into your mind, you just know them with the click of your fingers. You do not need to expend spell slots for these. You can do these as many times as you want per day. There is no restrictions on these, which makes cantrips personally very, very powerful. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to show you some of the cantrips I'm going to choose. So I'm going to choose Poison Spray. So if you want to see what spell that is, so Poison Spray, if you click on the little plus, that brings down this casting time, 1 action. So that means during combat, it takes 1 action to cast this spell. 1 action is 6 seconds in game. So it takes 6 seconds or 1 action to cast. You can cast this spell up to 10 foot away. So if you have an enemy that is 10 foot away, you can hit the enemy with this cantrip. Components: verbal and somatic. Verbal, obviously speaking, somatic, sort of hand movements. You don't actually have to do these in real life if you don't want to. They're just there to show you what components your character would need. Duration. So this is an instantaneous spell, which means you cast the spell, it goes off, and it disappears. You do have some spells that stay, like a minor image. The image may stay up for a certain amount of time. So attack or save. So when you cast this spell, do you need to make an attack against the target's AC, or does the target have to make a saving throw against your spell save DC? On this one, the target has to make a Constitution saving throw, which means it will take its Constitution saving throw bonus, and it will have to roll a d20 and add the saving throw bonus to the d20. It has then got to fail, which means it has to get below a 13. That means if it gets below a 13, you can do damage. If it gets a 13 or above, it has saved, and unfortunately, because it's a cantrip and it's not exceedingly powerful, nothing happens, unfortunately. I would have to say that other than Eldritch Blast, Poison Spray is one of the best cantrips you can get in the game. This is because it takes a 1d12 damage. This is the highest damage dice that you're going to be able to roll on any spell or weapon attack. And the best thing is that when you reach the next levels, you just get extra d12s. At 5th level, you roll 2d12 damage. That is fairly powerful for a cantrip. So I'm going to choose Poison Spray because it means that even if I'm out of spell slots, I still have an ability to attack and do a good deal of damage with this. I'm also going to cast Minor Illusion, and I'm also going to get Light. The reason I've chosen those is because for my character, I don't want them to be purely just a fighting character. The reason I've chosen Minor Illusion is that this is a great spell for having sort of social interaction and roleplay. So a lot of social interaction, you can cast like Minor Illusion, you can social interaction, or you can deceive to get in places, whatever else you need. Sorry, getting a little bit tongue-tied here. Light is a utility spell, which means it's very useful for exploration. You can cast light on a stone, and the stone will shed light up to 30 foot bright light and 30 foot in dim light, which means, just like my human, if your character does not have dark vision, if it cannot see in the dark, then this light cantrip will allow you guys to see. And if you guys don't know, if you haven't read the player's handbook, it is said that D&D has 3 pillars of playing the game: exploration, social interaction, and combat. The 3 things that really bring D&D together. These 3 spells really allow you to utilise each one of those pillars. Again, depending what character you will have a different spell list, so you'll have to choose and decide whether you want spells for the 3 different pillars, or if you just want to focus on like social interaction, or if you want to focus on sort of combat. Up here you can see that I've now got 3 cantrips. That's all of the cantrips I can use. Prepared spells, 0 out of 4, so I can choose 4 spells. I'm just going to press this one by here first to show me all of the first level spells that I can choose, so we can get rid of the cantrip so I don't have to worry about trying to pick one of those. Again, you can click the little plus and look at the spell's description and all of the other information that you need to know about the spell so that you can make the best decision possible about what you want. As a wizard, I'm probably going to want to choose Featherfall. That is a reaction, which means if something happens, you can just take a reaction, and it basically stops people from falling from large heights. I really like this spell. I think it's very, very useful when it comes in handy. It can be a lifesaver in a lot of situations. Identify, I'm going to take. That spell basically allows you to sit there and identify items that you know, without the spell you would not be able to identify. That can be magic items that you just got and you don't know what to do with. You can figure out what magic item it is. I'm going to have Mage Armor because my wizard is very squishy. He's going to be able to go down very, very quickly, and Mage Armor allows me to add 13 plus my Dexterity modifier for my AC. This increases my AC and makes it a lot harder for the creatures to hit me. I have a +2 to my Dexterity modifier, so I would have an AC of 15. And for my final one, I'm going to choose Magic Missile. Magic Missile is a very, very good first level spell to have. So, those are the spells that I'm choosing. And you can see, I'm going to go to my spell book and see that I've got these. In my spell book, you can see that these have prepare next to them. In a lot of classes, especially ones like the cleric where you have to prepare certain spells, you have to make sure that you press prepare. If you don't, they will not show up in your character sheet and you'll probably be left wondering why you haven't got any spells. So you need to make sure that you click prepared and that the prepare is green. If you have a look at my prepared spells, I've got my 3 cantrips and my 4 first level spells. If you just go back down to here, you can see that the prepare spells is now 4. Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of the spell stuff? I know it can get very complicated, so please do not be afraid to ask any questions.
You said before that you can put a spell on item or something?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
You said before that you could put a spell on the item?
The identify spell. So the identify spell is not putting a spell on the item. The identify spell allows you to identify a magic item. So it can tell you what spell is already on the item. So you choose one object that you must touch. If it is a magic item, the spell allows you to learn its properties and how to use them. So it's less about putting a spell on an item and more about being able to learn what properties this item already has. But again, you can go through all of the other spells and you can press this sort of green cross and just bring down the information of each spell so you can read it in your own leisure, because there are so many spells, I don't know them all, I'm afraid. There's probably other spells that you can put spells on items, but I can't think of them on the top of my head. There are hundreds of spells, I'm afraid, so you are going to have a look through what spells are available to your class and just have a look at what they do.
Might I also say a point of note too? See, with the identify spell, there's a little R tag next to it. That means it's a ritual cast spell and you don't have to use a spell slot. You just take an extra 10 minutes instead of instantaneous.
Yes, thank you. I was about to come to that in a little bit, but since you brought that up, I think we can definitely talk about that now. That's something very important that as a new player I did not know about. So some spells will have tags next to them. And it's just said the R means that it is a ritual spell, which means you can take an extra 10 minutes. So the casting time is 1 minute plus 10 minutes, which means you can take 11 minutes to cast Identify on an object. This allows you to cast this spell without expending a spell slot. This can be very, very useful for a lot of spells, and it's not just wizards that can do this. Clerics can also do this, and I'm pretty sure every spellcaster has the ability with some spells to do that. You've also got this little C tag here. This is concentration. This is what we were talking about earlier with the Constitution. So if you cast, for example, Create Bonfire, and you take damage, you're going to be asked to make a Constitution check. This is to see whether your concentration has been broken, and the DC for the check is 10. So if you get 10 or above, you're fine and the spell stays up. If you get below a 10, then unfortunately the spell does drop and you lose the spell slot that you used to cast it. The other thing with concentration spells is that you can't cast 2 concentration spells. So I could not cast Create Bonfire and Dancing Lights at the same time. If I cast Create Bonfire and then I cast Dancing Lights, my Bonfire spell would disappear and Dancing Lights would take this place instead. Okay, so we've done abilities, let's go on to description. So this is your background. This is basically where you came from. You've got Acolyte, Criminal Spy, Folk Hero, Haunted One, Noble, Sage and Soldier. Most of those are fairly self-explanatory and you can just take a quick flick through and see what they do. For myself and my character, I'm going to be giving Sebastian a Sage background. This means that he spent many years in the learning the lore of the multiverse. I think this fits the character very well, and the background you choose gives you extra stuff for the game. So I've got Arcana as a skill proficiency for my background, so I'm also going to choose something else and maybe Insight. So you also get some other things for this one. He gets languages, which I'll just choose 2 random ones, and you may get gaming equipment or tool proficiencies and whatever else, so you're able to choose with those. Not much you need to worry about this, that's pretty much it. Equipment. So you have the choice to choose between starting equipment or gold. I highly suggest, at least for my games, you do not go for gold. You may not find everything you're after, and especially as new players, you may not know exactly what you need. I highly suggest you go for the equipment, and as you level up, you will get more items for you to increase your character's AC, HP, etc. So when you choose equipment, you will be given these tables. You will usually be given options of, weapons and other stuff. Again, they will not look exactly the same. It all depends on your class. So I'm going to choose a quarterstaff because I feel like a quarterstaff goes very well with this sort of character. I'm going to choose a component pouch because, again, I feel like it goes very well with this sort of character rather than an arcane focus. And an explorer's pack or a scholar's pack. Although an explorer's pack I feel would be a lot more useful within the game, because if I just quickly click on it, you get sort of bedroll, mess kit, tinderbox, torches, rations, water skin, etc. Dungeon Leader's pack has got stuff for like climbing equipment and whatnot. However, I'm going to go with the Scholar's pack because I just feel like, again, it does go with the character a little bit better than the Explorer's pack, in which I get a book of lore, a bottle of ink, ink pen, 10 sheets of parchment and a little bag of sand. And obviously, as a wizard, I get a spell book, which I need to cast spells. You also get background starting equipment. So, as a sage, obviously I get more ink, quill, a small life, a letter from a dead colleague. I'm going to take that away because I don't really want that. That's just going to be taking up room on my equipment list. A set of common clothes, and you do get starting gold pieces. So, for mine, I get 10 gold pieces, and it will vary depending on the background. Once you've done that, you're going to want to add starting equipment. It'll take a little bit of time, and then when you're finished, the next step, please make sure you do this, is you want to go to your inventory, click down, so where you show it all, and then go down to your equipment and weapons and armor or whatever else. Where it says wield, same with your spells, please make sure you click this so it's green. If you do not, it will not show up on your character sheet. If you do not do this for your armor, it will not add your armor on. You will not have high AC. So please make sure you are wielding and wearing your armor before you move on. Again, people who have made the characters already, you may want to go back and just ensure that you have actually put on all of your equipment, you're wielding all of your weapons, and that you've got all of your spells ready to go. What's next? The two things you can do now is either export to PDF, which I will show you here. So this is what it will look like. Can you guys all see that? Yeah, cool. This is what it will look like. You've got your class and level, your race, your background, the name, all of the stats you've picked out. As you can see, this is your base stat. And then this is the modifier. So this modifier is what I would add to a D20 roll to see about checks and everything else. So for me, this is the most important thing that I have. You've also got your saving throws. So if I ask for a dexterity saving throw, I would roll a D20 and I would add my dex saving throw, which I hope you can see that, but that's a +2. So I would add my saving throw to modifier to a D20 roll. You can also be asked for a skill check, for example, a history skill check. So my history is a +5. When I chose my history, if you remember back when I was choosing my class and race, when I chose history, the reason for that is because I get my proficiency bonus, which is a +2. Where is it? +2. Proficiency bonuses are added to skills that you have, you're proficient in. You have a lot of ability in. And again, you'll be choosing what skills do you have the best abilities in. Because of the character that I've created, I've thought Arcana, History, investigation, sort of the intelligence-based skills is really what my character is going to have the best chance in. So the History, it has got my intelligence modifier, so that's a +3, and because I'm proficient in it, it adds my proficiency bonus, so a +5. However, my insight is a wisdom, so as you can see by here, it says Wiz. Ooh. No, okay, it's fine. So it says Wiz next to it, right? So that means that's what stat it's going off. So my wisdom is a +1, and I'm now proficient in it when I chose insight for my background, so I get a +2 to it. Hence a +3. So if we go back to history a second, where it says intelligence, and I got a +5. If we go to religion, for example, where it's intelligence as well, I am not proficient in religion. That means I don't get the proficiency bonus, but I do get my intelligence bonus, hence +3. So I would roll a D20 and then add one of these to the D20 roll, depending on what skill the DM has asked me to make. Max HP, fairly self-explanatory, that's how much HP you have. AC, obviously a 12, because it's 10 plus your dexterity modifier. My dex is a +2. And I'm not wearing armour, so I get no bonuses from armour or a shield. So that's just 10 +2, which is 12. Which means that the monsters have to roll a 12 or above to hit me with an attack. You have a 30-foot walking speed, which means when you're doing battle and you're on a grid, each square of a grid is 5 foot. So I will be able to walk 6 squares on a grid for 30 foot of walking per round. As you can see, because I've clicked the wield with my quarterstaff, I've got the name of the quarterstaff. I've got a +1 to hit, which means I roll a d20 and then I +1. And then 1d6 -1 bludgeoning, because my strength is a -1. And an arm strike, which is basically just a punch, and I do 0 damage if I punch because of how weak I am. But again, I am a wizard, so my main form of fighting is going to be through spells and not through melee combat. go down, you've got all of your features here, which you can have a look through, which is everything we've just gone through. You've got your equipment and your gold pieces and all of the stuff you carry. This is more for you and how you want to play your character. If you think filling this out will help you play your character a bit better, then you can fill all of this out, but that's optional. And then my spell list. So spell save DC is 13, so if I need them to make me a saving throw when I cast a spell, they have to roll 13 or above to save. And if I have to roll to hit them, I roll a d20 and then I plus 5 because of my spell attack bonus. If you don't want that, you can always just view character sheet, which will take you to the website, which will have all of the same information set out, except it's set out slightly differently on a web page. So if you take 3 points of damage, 3 in damage, but if you take 3 points of healing, heal up here and you go back up. You can also take short rest or long rest. So take a long rest, confirm, and it will sort all of your spell slots out if you've used any, max HP, etc. So you can go to an attack, you got your attacks there, spells, so you got your cantrips, and you got your first levels, equipment, feature and traits, things we've gone through, your description, which I said was completely voluntary, you don't have to do that. And again, you basically have everything I've just gone through in this one space. So I did say at the start about rolling dice. Now you can roll on D&D Beyond, and it's very, very simple. So if I say, okay, I want to jump across a ravine, and the DM looks at me and go, okay, I need you to make me an athletics check. I go to athletics by here, this -1, I click that, and I have the dice come up, and then 7 plus -1 is 6. So I would say, okay, I got a 6, and the DM will probably tell me I fall down the ravine and take a hell of a lot of damage. But if you need to make any of the checks, you can just press on the number and it'll roll a dice, 15 plus 3. It's the same with these. If I want to use my quarterstaff, the +1. Okay, so that's a 7 to hit, and let's say by some wild imagination I've actually hit a thing, I can do the damage, so I can roll the damage thing, and then I do 3 damage. And again, same with the spells. I think, no, it's not actually anywhere. Oh no, yes it is. Ignore me, I'm sorry. So again, with poison spray, if you want to try and hit, does it only do damage? I think so. So
It just depends on the spell you use. Like for these spells that you selected, you do not have to roll to hit. You'll hit automatically.
got it.
But if
Yes.
you're using like Guiding Bolt, you would have to roll a d20 before you're able to hit.
Of course. So yes, I'm assuming it would come up with a thing but there then for you to click and roll a d20. But yeah, because the ones that I've picked, they're all saving throws, so ignore me. So yeah, but you can also use with spells as well. You can click and do the damage and it will roll for you. So this is what you can do if you don't have dice. You can roll on D&D Beyond and it will roll for you. Okay, so that's pretty much everything you need to know about character creation on this. Is there any questions about anything we've gone through? Anything else you want to know about that I haven't picked up on yet?
Might I make just one more point of note? I know I'm kind of being annoying.
No, of course, go ahead.
For spellcasters, this rule applies for you guys. You need to pay attention to the material components of your spells, because if you do not have those material components, you will not be able to cast the spell.
Yes, I think we did touch on this earlier in the Q&A, but just because I know a couple of people weren't there. I don't tend to worry too much on material component unless there is a specific monetary value to the components. So if it just says like a piece of copper wire, I assume you have that. However, if it says 25 gold pieces worth of copper wire, I will need you to say that you need to go and buy that material, that component. So yeah, but make sure you know what materials you need, what components you need, and if there is a monetary value of the components, please ensure that you will go and buy those components before you start, otherwise you will not be able to cast the spell. Some spells will use up your components, which means you will need to keep buying more. Some spells will not use up the components, so you will only have to buy it once and you will be able to cast the spell as long as you have the component. Okay. Do we have any other questions or anything else about character creation? No? Okay, well just one last thing before we go. When you do get XP, if you just go to this little cog in the corner, scroll down, you can go to manage XP, and then you can put in so let's say you killed one goblin in the session, you would gain 50 XP, apply changes, and you can see your XP has gone up. Okay, so if you put in 300 or 250 XP, apply changes, you've gone up to third level, you've gone up to second level, which means you will have to go back up into the cog, manage levels, change to level 2, and then you can choose everything else. But yeah, for now that's how you make a character, and that's how you roll and use D&D Beyond for character creation. So yeah, if you've got no more questions, nothing else to say, thank you all for coming.
Maybe show them where the conditions are, just in case, like, they get poisoned or they
Yeah, sure.
in your campaign.
Of course. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying earlier, if you go down, you will need to take 1 level of exhaustion. So if you go to this area here, where it says conditions, you can just click that, and you've got a list of conditions. So exhaustion is at the bottom, you would just have 1 level of exhaustion. So 1 level would mean disadvantage on ability checks, or you can take that off. But you've also got unconscious, if you go unconscious, grappled, if you're grappled, deafened, if you're deafened. So yep, you can just add one of those, maybe if you're charmed and grappled at the same time, poor character. But as you can see, they have now been added to your conditions, so you can remember. Trying to think if there's anything else I've forgotten. Defenses, I mean, you should already have your defenses there anyway. You can't remember a reason why you would need to worry about that, because if you have any defenses as part of your character creation, it will automatically come up anyway, but there. Okay. I think that will be the end of the workshop. If you do have any questions about anything, please do not be afraid to ask me. You can either private DM me here, or you can ask in the Q&A, because somebody else might have a better answer than I do, that they'll be able to help you out with. So yeah, if you have any more questions, please feel free to message me. This will be going up onto YouTube after this, so if you need a refresher or go through anything else that I've said, feel free to, pop over to YouTube, rewatch this, and just, go to the specific area. I will put the link to the YouTube in the Discord, so you can get there easily. If you want, anything else, things will be in the description of the YouTube video, so you can go click through stuff there. What else? There was something else. Yeah, I don't know. There'll be more stuff in the description, so go take a look. So I'm just gonna quickly end the recording.